Hi, I'm Becky Coletta. I'm the president of Old Colony Planning Council and the delegate from Pembroke. We're here today to roll out Grantology. It's a new initiative that's designed to raise the bar in the services and resources that OCPC can bring to all of our 17 communities. While in its initial stages of development, in 2 months, Paul has already been successful in submitting grants and working with many of you. As this program evolves, we'll be rolling out more information. But for now, more from Mary Waldron and Paul Umano to tell you more about the program.
Hi, I'm Mary Waldron, Executive Director of Old Colony Planning Council. And as you just heard from our council president, Becky Coletta, this initiative is new because we've heard from our communities, we've heard from our council members, we've heard from many residents who are interested in knowing more and doing more. In order for us to do that, we need resources, and those resources may not have always been so easy to get to. With the council support, hiring a grants writer, Paul Umano, who's formerly working for the city of Brockton, now works for us and has already made impact on us within the organization as staff. And we look forward to working with all of you. And how do you get to these funds and what sort of resources are going to be needed? You will be hearing more from Paul. This is going to be a monthly event, but nothing will prevent you from having some conversations with staff as well as from your delegates. So thank you for listening in, and we look forward to having this program grow.
Hello, and welcome to the inaugural kickoff to Grantology. My name is Paul Umano, and I am the Senior Grants Development Specialist for Old Colony Planning Council. I want to thank Becky Coletta, our president, and Executive Director Mary Waldron for their wonderful introductory remarks to this wonderful program. I'm very excited to be here with you today and having the opportunity to work with all of you. All of our communities are very unique and represent something very special within our region. And I want to thank the council for providing the resources to make this position a reality. And truly, as President Coletta said, raise the bar for what we're trying to do, and making sure that you all have the tools and the resources you need to move your communities forward and also learn more about grants in the process. I hope to take my 7 years of prior experience with the city of Brockton and hopefully instill, again, some of that knowledge onto you all. So get into a little bit about the purpose, again, of what we're trying to do here, but also introduce some key terms and some of the background language of 2 of the major federal initiatives that underlie a lot of the federal grants that you see now, as well as some upcoming state programs. So again, this is an open webinar for you all to identify upcoming grant opportunities, both at the state and federal level, to educate you all about the grants and sort of the nuances that go along with that, but also to assist you along the way in making sure that you have a great understanding of these programs and how we can obviously further assist you all along in this journey. So we plan on doing this on a monthly basis. This is, again, our inaugural kickoff to the program, but this will be a living and breathing series. So in addition to the webinar, we will have resources on our website. You can find that at oldcolonyplanningcouncil.org/resources/grant. So we will have a repository of information there for all of you to view these upcoming opportunities, particularly as new ones become available. Grants are seemingly done on a monthly basis. So this will be helpful as you're looking for new opportunities, but also, again, the resources to help you move forward. And we also have our biweekly newsletter where all this information will be stored. So just providing some helpful terminology in terms of grants that I think would be useful for your particular community. And one of the differentiating factors is and sort of the 2 buckets that we have in terms of grants. So there are discretionary grants and formula grants. So the discretionary grants are essentially competitive grants that can be at the state or federal level. They are done on a competitive basis, scored with a particular rubric or grading criteria. We'll get into some of the detailed nuances of the federal criteria that overlap several of these federal programs. And again, they all have their own unique scoring. And then there are formulaic grants. These formula funds are set by state or federal statute. They are non-competitive in nature, but they do have their own set of criteria required of specific entities to access those funds, whether that be an application or another particular mechanism to access those funds. Something else that is helpful for you all is sort of differentiating between two different types of grants that we often see both at the state and federal level. So there are planning and implementation grants, or often referred to as construction grants. Typically, when we look at state and federal grants, a lot of them require at least 25% design or engineering to be complete before you're allowed to apply for the construction portion of it. So that may require a specific grant to hire a consultant to come in to do that work for you, or that may be something that you can do in the community on your own accord. There are instances to where you can jump right in and apply for construction grants without any planning that needs to be done. That's usually typically rare, but certainly not unheard of in the grant world. And again, the exceptions depend on the notice of funding opportunity and the regulations and statutes that are part of that particular program. Another important term is understanding the importance of particular deadlines in terms of ones that are set by the statute within the program, but also there are rolling deadlines. So these rolling deadlines can be set at certain times during the month, but there are also rolling deadlines that you can apply at any time of the year. And there's no set day or time or hour to put in the application. It is truly rolling to where you can enter into the application at any point that you see fit. As we talk about these construction grants moving forward, many of them require a benefit cost analysis to be completed as part of the application process. This is particularly pertinent with the federal discretionary grants. This is something that you can, again, either work with a consultant with or something that can be done in-house. The U.S. Department of Transportation in particular has their own template that can be used, and we can certainly provide that to all of you. A link to that on our webpage and in our newsletter, excuse me. And typically the agency will provide instructions on how to do the benefit cost analysis. There are several guidebooks out there, particularly, again, going back to the DOT example. They have many rich resources to do the benefit cost analysis, but they're all unique to the particular agency. So EPA will have their own versus DOT versus FEMA versus other federal agencies. I haven't run across at the state level the need to do benefit cost analysis, but certainly could be pertinent to any need to do that on the state level. As we talk about grants, something that's important is understanding the match requirements that go along with it. It's not all grants have 100% federal match requirement. In order to be competitive and score highly on a lot of the grant scoring rubrics, it requires communities to put in a little bit of their own resources, whether that be a cash or in-kind source of match. Each of the respective notice of funding opportunities will outline which is allowable. Typically, it can range from both to one or the other. It's just all dependent on the stipulations within the grant. And something else to keep in mind that's typical with match is it sort of lines up with the funding schedule of the grant award. So a lot of the costs related to the match need to be incurred on the same timeline as a grant award. So in other words, anything previously incurred in terms of match, whether it's time before a contract is awarded or a cash match committed prior to the execution of a contract agreement, then that wouldn't be allowable. But there are, again, certain exceptions to that. So I did want to get into a couple of upcoming deadlines for you all. One of the ones that's pretty big, particularly among our region, our communities, is the One Stop for Growth program. So we're currently in the expression of interest period. So what that means is essentially this gives the opportunity for communities to put in a letter of intent, so to speak, to provide the Executive Office of Economic Development your proposal through the One Stop program. And One Stop covers a multitude of different grant programs, as the name would imply, under a one-stop shop. So we have the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, has a series of grant programs. There's the Mass Works infrastructure grants. There's the Mass Housing grants. Mass Development also has a series of grants under the One Stop. So each of these has their own specific requirements. Generally, municipalities are eligible for these, but also nonprofit agencies are as well. So it depends on which program you seek to apply for funding towards. And within those specific programs, there are certain match requirements. So those vary between no match at all to up to 25%, depending on the program that you're going to apply for. So the expression of interest will have the opportunity to provide you feedback for your full application. And then once you have that feedback and you know that your grant is on track, the full application period is essentially open now. So anytime between now and the end of, June 5th is when you can get in your proposals. So that is One Stop. And then MVP is another big one, particularly here at OCPC. So the upcoming grant period has released. There's a deadline of April 24th for this. The grant awards for the program range from $25,000 to up to $3 million. But also keeping in mind that there is a 10% match with this. And this is open to communities that are designated as an MVP community, who have completed the Community Resiliency Building workshop, have a plan in place, and now are able to access these implementation funds. And what you can do with these funds ranges from climate change impacts, looking at extreme weather events that have impacted your community, sea level rise, coastal flooding, severe heat-related issues, and many others. So the project types include planning and assessment, capacity building, designing and permitting, construction, and of course, implementation. The main thing to keep in mind with MVP is it must meet the core principles of the program, including identifying specific nature-based solutions. So this deadline, again, is fast approaching, and definitely be sure to get in your proposals by the 24th deadline. Okay, so that's sort of the overview of the state side of things. On the federal side, we have essentially two federal programs that have essentially allocated almost $1 trillion in funding between them. And that is through both the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was enacted by President Biden in 2021 to provide series of competitive and formulaic grant funds to municipalities, tribal governments, rural governments, states, and even regional planning agencies like ourselves. And the focus is mainly tied to transportation, Department of Transportation in particular, climate-related grant programs through the EPA and many others. This is also environmental. There are many environmental grant programs that folks can take advantage of. And then there's also broadband as well. So the federal government has taken a big initiative in making sure that communities have access to affordable broadband at high speeds that many, particularly in our rural communities, may not have been able to take advantage of in the past. So it's definitely a great program. And then funding has also been allocated to other departments, such as the Department of Commerce, Agriculture, and Department of Energy. So there are several grants under the Department of Energy. And then a year after that, the Inflation Reduction Act was implemented in 2022. And this provides additional funding for clean energy, climate change, and really assisting both communities on the grant side of things, but also these energy tax credits available to residents related to energy bills, clean energy, whether that be EV deployment, clean buildings, and clean manufacturing. So there is a slew of opportunities at that level. But again, there are also grant opportunities that go along with the Inflation Reduction Act. So there are a few grant programs that I want to get into as it relates to both of that. But I did want to go back to something I said earlier related to sort of the federal scoring as it relates to the applications and something called the merit criteria. So the merit criteria is essentially how your application is going to be reviewed and evaluated, and essentially the fundamental tenets of what you put in your applications. And they center around a series of different criteria, excuse me. Safety is one. Environmental sustainability is also critical. Improving the quality of life in our communities, mobility and community connectivity. This notion of the state of good repair, partnership and collaboration and equity, and also implementing innovative technologies, as well as innovative project delivery and innovative financing. So just to touch upon each of these really quick. Safety deals with the federal initiative of the National Roadway Safety Strategy and the idea of implementing a future of zero roadway fatalities among motorized and non-motorized travelers, and understanding sort of both the health and the safety risks that go along with that, and implementing what the Department of Transportation calls the Safe Systems Approach model. And you can find more information about that model on the DOT's website. It's a lot of very helpful resources, and we'll actually get into a couple of those close to the end of the program. So the next merit criteria is related to environmental sustainability. Very huge initiative for both bipartisan infrastructure law, but also the Inflation Reduction Act related to air pollution and greenhouse gas reduction emissions. So that does coincide with travel as well. So lowering the long carbon pavement and construction materials that go along with these programs as well. Another merit criteria is the quality of life. So as the name would imply, ensuring equity and access for all communities, reducing the transportation and housing burden, facilitating greater investments in public-private partnerships, removing a lot of the physical barriers for individuals and communities, and ensuring we address a lot of the racial and equity barriers that have historically been seen with a lot of these grant programs, and making sure that communities are accounting for disadvantaged and environmental justice folks as part of their overall application process. Community and public participation are huge among these programs. Mobility and community connectivity is also a big one. Making sure that neighborhoods are safe to live, to work, and to play. Making sure that we are all interconnected. And this also intertwines with ADA and the Americans with Disability Act, and making sure that your application is in line with those requirements. Economic competitiveness is another merit criteria. Just making sure that in your proposal, you're considering strong labor practices, working with your local labor unions, and implementing those policies. Tourism is another big component to that. Making sure that's included in as part of the proposal. Increasing affordable transportation options, and managing travel time reliably. State of good repair, restoring and modernizing core infrastructure assets, improving the ongoing state of good repair as it relates to that. Partnership and collaboration is another big one. Making sure that you're working with community groups, nonprofit agencies, and other organizations that are vital to the process and what you're trying to do with your particular project. And then there are finally the innovative technology component to the proposals. And this includes innovative project delivery and financing, making sure that you've included some sort of innovative method of procurement in how you provide your proposal, looking at specific permits, approvals, and waivers, and other procedural components to this, and making sure that that is included in your applications. So that was a long list. Hopefully that made sense to you all, and feel free to follow up with any questions, and I will leave my information towards the end of the webinar. So a particularly important bipartisan infrastructure law grant program that has released is related to the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. So this program is divided into a few different grant tracks. There is a planning and demonstration grant track, as well as an implementation grant track. So to be eligible for the implementation award, communities must do a plan or a safety action plan, and can apply for these planning grant funds to do so. And again, this is centered around the National Roadway Safety Plan, as well as the concept of zero roadway fatalities. So the federal government has asked communities, particularly Department of Transportation, to begin working with your community members on creating an overall safety action plan related to implementing a model that will prevent serious death and roadway fatalities on city streets and roadways in our communities. This plan must be completed prior to communities being able to apply for the implementation award. But the good news is, in the meantime, communities that don't have a fully implemented safety action plan can take advantage of the demonstration grants and pilot a particular component or element of safety measures that communities want to implement as part of this proposal. So the planning and demonstration grant max award is up to $10 million for communities. The implementation award is up to $25 million this year. There are several rolling deadlines, May 16th at 5 o'clock being the planning and demonstration grant deadline. And then the August 29th deadline is specific to the implementation grant. For those that are planning to apply, whether you're doing a planning demonstration or implementation award, need to provide a pre-eligibility award sheet. So that is essentially a cover sheet as part of the application process. And we can certainly provide more information to you all if you're interested in learning more about that. There is a 20% non-federal match required for the program, and that can be in the form of in-kind or a cash local match. An Inflation Reduction Act grant of particular note is the Community Climate Change Grant Program. This is an environmental grant centered around the concept of reducing greenhouse gas emission reductions for communities and taking advantage of climate resiliency and implementing these nature-based solutions that are common with these applications. So under the Community Climate Change Program, there are two tracks: community-driven investments for change, increasing community resilience through climate action activities. This includes reducing local pollution to improve public health. Is centered around meaningful public engagement, reaching our environmental justice communities, and making sure that they are involved in the entirety of the project that you're seeking under this program. The second track under this is creating a sort of a governance committee or a climate action committee, if you will, that involves certain state and federal advisory groups that you'd want to involve as part of this. This can be to fund workshops and other public processes that are part of the development of this committee. Something to keep in mind, with this program is that folks need to have a climate action plan developed prior to applying. However, for those that don't have one and unable to apply for either track 1 or track 2 under this program, can apply for 2 buckets of technical assistance, one of which is for the EPA to work with the community and have several subject matter experts come into the community and provide feedback and resources to applying in the future towards implementation grant funding, but as well as addressing your particular need related to your project. And then there's also a project-specific technical assistance that you can also apply for. And there is more details on that on the EPA's website. So for the 2 tracks that we just talked about, the award amount for track 1, the community-driven investment for change, is anywhere between 10 and 20 million. And then the meaningful engagement for equitable governance is $1 to $3 million for this particular program. And there is no federal match requirement for this program. So that was just a brief rundown of a few of the grant programs that are out there through BIL, IRA, and through the state. Again, we'll be regularly updating both the OCPC website as well as our newsletter with all of these different opportunities. There are many, many more upcoming programs and exciting initiatives both on the federal and state level for our communities to take advantage of. And feel free to reach out to me at any point if you have any questions or additional thoughts on what you've seen today. You can get in touch with me. My email is pumano, that's PUMANO, @ocpcrpa.org. And our website is oldcolonyplanning.org. And you can find, again, more information on our website. So with that being said, I want to thank you for your time on this inaugural kickoff and one of many webinars moving forward in this series. So again, thank you all for your time, and I look forward to doing more with you all in the future. Take care.